Well, welcome to another episode of Voices in Leadership. I am Melissa Andrews, President and CEO of Leading Age Virginia, and it is my absolute pleasure to host this podcast. I always say I have two very special guests today, but the reality is I have two very special guests today because these are women who I not only get to call colleagues, but I get to call incredibly dear friends and chosen family. So I am thrilled that Diana Delgado and Kelly Papa are here with me today. Thank you for saying yes to this, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, Diana, let's start with you. Would you just tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Sure. So Diana Delgado, I'm the president and CEO of Eaton Senior Communities in Lakewood, Colorado. I have been with this organization for 14 years now, and in this new role for me for the last 6 months. So I am embarking on exciting times here at our community. We are an affordable housing provider serving 225 residents within our community.
Great, thank you. And Kelly, tell us about you and Duncaster.
Hi, I'm coming to you from Connecticut, Bloomfield, Connecticut. Our organization, Duncaster, is a life plan community in which we thrive daily, a really vibrant community of our older adults. We have about 240 independent living residents. We have about another 40 assisted living residents and 60 short-term rehab / skilled nursing. I've been here for 3 years and I'm a nurse by background.
Great, thank you. So let's just start at the beginning, and we'll start with you this time, Kelly. How did you get into our field?
I am definitely an accidental tourist. I didn't go to nursing school planning on being a CEO of a life plan community. In fact, I didn't even know that existed. And so that's one of my main goals now, is to say, how do we make aging services a career destination for people? I was going to fly Lifestar, the local helicopter for emergencies, into the hospital and work in the ER. That's what I wanted to do. And something about the rotation at the nursing home at St. Anselm College just spoke to me. And I found myself an extremely challenging, rewarding, never dull career in aging services. And from frontline nursing, care planning, and all the fun of MDSs to staff development, et cetera. So never bored.
Well, we are glad that they revoked your passport once you ended up as an accidental tourist. How about you, Diana?
Well, I intentionally went into this field, which I know is not everybody's experience. I was exposed as a young child to older adults through Meals on Wheels. My mom was a Meals on Wheels volunteer, so my brother and I got to tag along with her when we would go on her meal deliveries. And I also had a really close relationship with my grandparents. So I really had an affinity for older adults as a young child. So I purposely went into this field. I majored in gerontology in college and started working in this field right out of college. So I've been in this field a long time now.
Yeah. So Diana, why have you stayed in the field?
That is a great question. I have stayed in this field because I truly believe in the mission that we serve as nonprofit providers. I'm really passionate about the work that we do, providing, housing with the intersection of healthcare, where this all really begins, and helping people age successfully. So I'm just really passionate about the people.
Yeah. What about you, Kelly?
Oh, I echo Diana. It's the mission. We both come from not-for-profit organizations, and as do you, with Leading Age. And there is just something about that mission that is aspirational, and it pulls you to know that there's always going to be a better way and more people that we get to serve in wonderful ways. And so throughout that ability to say, what is it that we need to accomplish next, and never being okay with the status quo, always evolving those programs, has been exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah, so to that end, to both of you, just going off script a little bit, what would you say, Diana, makes Eaton uniquely Eaton as compared to maybe other providers that offer affordable housing and services?
Well, we do so much through partnerships. We are able to provide a wide array of health and wellness services on site because we're very intentional about connecting to the community. We are also a culture of yes. We call ourselves the culture of curiosity because we want to bring in those innovative services and programs that you may not find in other communities. So yeah, I would say what makes us unique is our yes culture.
What about you, Kelly? What makes Duncaster the place that you want to be, and what uniqueness does it offer?
You know, what drew me to this remarkable community was its how it became created. And so Duncaster was created by the first people who lived here. They were neighbors, and they wanted to really create the way that they wanted to age. And so they wanted to make sure that their families didn't have to worry, but everything was there to have this amazing lifestyle that they have, that we've continued the tradition through. So within that, the inclusion of the residents is in everything that we do. Every meeting that we have, there's residents, there's 3 on our board. And, you know, as we think about, you know, who do we want to be when we grow up, the residents are definitely at the forefront of all those conversations. And so for me, it's that ability to kind of dig into what is the life you want to live, and what do you find is important, or what are your talents, skills, and abilities that I can pull in to fix something. I have a microbiologist resident. So during COVID, it was like, we called him the professor. We're like, can you go research that and get back to us? You know, so, but really that is just the way it is here. You find somebody with a talent, they become the master of it. And so we've got about 12 really dedicated committees. And so they, from everything from dining to finance, and even parking, but really knowing that their involvement and that sense of purpose is right within our walls, right within the lived experience here in this extremely welcoming community.
Yeah, I love that, because it just says that, you know, especially as I've done this podcast and as people are out and networking with others, each of the organizations that are part of Leading Age are so unique. And, you know, really isn't one size fits all, which means that the resident and the client lived experience is not one size fits all, which I think makes it such a beautiful sector to be in. I'm curious, Kelly, when did you decide you wanted to be a CEO? You said you didn't start out wanting that, but when did that switch for you?
Watching the Shackleton movie for like the 70th time.
Tell our listeners about Shackleton, so they might not know.
Oh, the Antarctic adventure. And you may have seen recently they found the ship. And so I facilitate the state Leading Age Leadership Academy. And so I always know when I play on that one that I have 40 minutes to go and do what I need to, because I can recite the movie for you. But it was at that moment where I kind of realized if I don't choose my career, someone's going to choose it for me. And if I don't choose and really like throw the dart into what I want to do in the future, nobody's going to do it, you know, or people are going to find me and plug me in wherever they want me to go. And so with that, it was to find an organization that matched my values. And through the experience of Leading Age leadership academies in the state and nationally, I, like you, Melissa and Diana, got a lot of exposure to different places. And so you could feel those differences. But for me, it was to make sure my values were aligned. And because then I knew I could have not only a vibrant career, but also my personal life. And so I, during that movie, found the courage, like Ernest Shackleton would, of, you know, figuring out what's the next step and just getting there, passing the past, look forward, and reached out to the CEO here at the time to see what his succession plan was.
That took a lot of that. That was both risky and confident. And I mean, how did you feel when you reached out and made that ask?
That's a good question. I was enthusiastic about the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And really driven. You know, we had a retreat, and I mean, to everyone, I know one of the questions were what advice, and to my student over here, you know, talk to people, have your network, let them bring the best out in you, because we had a 2-day retreat and we had all read a book together, and it was just time, you know, and I had reconciled in my journaling that there wasn't any time to waste, and just pick up the phone and see what happens. And maybe you won't get the answer you want, but maybe you will. So yeah, it was just try it.
Right. Don't regret the choices you've made, regret the choices you haven't made, or the actions you haven't taken. I got that advice in my career from a mentor, which was, you will regret if you don't try for it. You won't regret if you try and you don't get it. And I thought that was good advice. And Diana, you've got a kind of different spin on becoming CEO. So would you just share, you know, kind of what, looking back when you Sorry, dog barking. It's what we do now. When you started out in this field, I don't believe you imagined yourself as CEO, knowing you like I do. So when the opportunity arose for a successor to take the reins at Eaton, talk about what you went through in thinking about, is this the next step for me?
Right. Well, being with this organization for so long, I really never did envision myself being in this seat on the bus. This was not my life goal. But when this opportunity arose, I'm at a very different time of my life right now than I have been previously, where I felt like this decision was right for me at this point in time. It took me a little while to get there because, imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Yeah.
And that is something I definitely had to get through to make this decision to move into this role. And I do not regret it. So I'm really enjoying the challenge, and I'm getting a lot of great feedback from my residents and the team. And it's been a lot of fun. And I'm sure it's not fun day in and day out every day, but so far I'm really enjoying this transition.
Yeah, so talk about that, transitioning from your previous role to the CEO role, Diana. What have you had to let go of, or what have you gained in the past 6 months? I realize it's a short window of time.
Yeah, so what I've had to let go of is I was in a very operational role previous to this. So, being in a totally different mindset now in this role is a stretch for me a little bit, but I'm learning as I go. And what I've really gained is, by letting go of that imposter syndrome, is that sense of confidence and that I can do this, that I am ready for this. And so I just sum it up that way.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome is real. And I don't know about the two of you, but going into every board meeting, I mean, I still have 6 years into this role. I still have that moment of, like, are they going to realize, and I don't know if that's all, I know that's not all CEOs don't feel that way, but that is something that I continue to kind of, and I think it's good to a certain extent, because I think it doesn't allow me to get complacent. It doesn't, it requires me to always be thinking about continuous improvement, both of myself, personally, professionally, and the organization. Kelly, what have you had to let go of, and what have you gained during this transition?
And I thought a lot about this question. I work very consciously to try to let go of the things that I do with ease, because the other side of it are the things I don't know how to do. And so I can very quickly find myself in some sort of challenging situation with the residents that we have to unpack, and doing all that and wanting to make the phone calls like I did in my other job. But if I'm doing that, Kelly, I'm not allowing other people to do those things. And so while I enjoy it, I have focused and try really hard to turn to the things that I don't know how to do at all. I mean, there are the days that the imposter, like I walked to my board chair last Wednesday, I said, here, you can take my name tag. It's just over. I get it. I screwed up. It's over. And he's like, would you put it down? And it's wonderful that my relationship with him and with my team is one of leading in that space where we're constantly in learning mode, and that there's nothing that could happen that bad that we didn't make sure it was a lesson, that we learned something together. And if I'm allowing my staff to do that, then why don't I grant myself the same thing? But again, to both of your point, that imposter can really, dig in there. But being surrounded by a great team that really just pull you back out, and then you can shine, be your best self. But giving yourself those moments that they're real, and then being vulnerable in front of my team. It's a new team. I have a brand new team. Some only been here 2 months, but they are outstanding. And so if I keep doing for them their job, then they're never going to do it. So
Right.
yeah. So I guess it's leaning into the uneasy stuff.
Yeah. So Kelly, how would you describe, or what's most important to you in terms of your leadership style?
So I've done a lot of work in this space, and to create what is the phrase, that I live by, my leadership motto, or whatever we call these, code, I guess. And it's tender with people, but tough on standards. And by tender with people, the educator in me, the teacher in me knows that everybody's really trying really hard. And if you can help them through learning and through just space and gracious assumptions, they're going to bring their best, right? And so, but I'm tough on standards. We come together because this is a business. This is a place of work. And so I can like you, but you didn't follow the policy, and let me teach you about the policy, but you didn't follow it again, so that, I think for me, it gives me this balance of, when difficult decisions have to be made, am I really being compassionate for that person? But at the same time, what does the business need? So why those two things feel polarizing, they help me make sure I'm going home at night knowing that I was tender with the people I'm entrusted to lead and care for, but also I'm maintaining the integrity of the organization's needs for the residents' safety and quality of life.
Yeah. Wow. What about you, Diana? What's most important to you in terms of your leadership?
Yeah, participatory leadership is really important to me. Letting everyone at the table have a voice, that really leading the organization that way so that we're all making decisions that are, that we all have input in. It's not just coming down from the top. The other piece to me that's really important is making sure that we are being very solutions driven. Asking good questions. We learned in Leadership Academy about what softball questions. A lot of my day is spent asking softball questions so that we can get to the best decision making together. But at the same time, coming at it from more of that optimistic lens rather than just focusing on problems.
Yeah. Yeah. What is, Diana, one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
So one thing I wish I had known was, and I know this now, and I learned it pretty quickly when I first started out, but how important relationships are, because, building that network of people, that every person you encounter along the way, there've been times I've run into people, years later, and it's like, oh, I wish I had maintained contact with that person, and you think about all the things that you maybe could have involved them in, whether it's a partnership or, a conversation. I wish I had really started building my network much earlier on in my career.
Yeah. How about you, Kelly?
I would say I wish I knew when I started in nursing that, or in my life in general, just to be yourself and own every part of whatever's quirky or curious. Be there, because the more authentic I am, the more authentic I let someone else be too. And so there are other times where I do get extremely nervous, but leaning into that space of just be true to who you are. I have this very vivid memory of the first day at the Leading Age Leadership Academy nationally. We were in San Diego, and I met Tom Akins, and he's this joyful person I had never met or encountered from Connecticut. Like in Connecticut, we're all kind of the same. So all of a sudden, I'm meeting people from all over the country, and their personalities are inspiring me, and the coaches are also different, but also awesome. And so it was definitely this thing of be yourself and own every part of that, and don't compromise it, and don't apologize for it either, I think is the other part. I had an executive coach as I walked into this role, and I said, I know you're going to tell me to stop laughing so much. she said no, but you be you laugh, but then at the end recap everything that was said in that meeting to make sure that people there know that you were following through. You didn't just see it as a joke. So it's that ability to know who you are and get better in that zone and try to become somebody you're not, because it's never going to happen, or you'll feel like you're writing with your non-dominant hand all the time. Who can do that for a long time? You can't. So
that's right. That's so funny. I remember the day we started Leadership Academy, Diana and I were in the same class. And I remember it felt like, for me, it felt like the first day of school. And it was like, what am I going to wear? And none of these people are going to like me. And I remember Deanne Akins, so Tom's wife, I remember her first check-in. I remember verbatim what she said when she checked in, and she remembered verbatim what I said. I don't know how we both said something that just connected with the other person from across the room. And I thought, okay, there's somebody in here that I might be able to connect with. But even, and that's how I am at a reception. I don't know about you two. I mean, because Kelly, when you described Tom as bubbly and joyful, I saw Diana started laughing too, because we're like, were you looking in a mirror?
I
never let myself be that way.
Oh, I can't imagine a Kelly.
Yeah, I just wouldn't.
Kelly
I can't either. Oh my gosh.
That
I
makes
was not,
so sad.
I was not that way at all, and at all. No, but I think I always could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember the day he called me and he said, I walked into the academy saying, okay, I'm a clinical educator, a CE. I'm not a CEO. I was much younger than everybody else. And I said I'd leave quietly.
You handed them your name tag with just
I
your
did. I
name
was like, there's been a mistake. I shouldn't be here. I'm not a CEO. I'm a clinical educator. It's a CE. You misread everything. So they said, that's why you're here. Sit down. I'm like, okay. But I remember vividly the day Tom called and said, would you chair the shared learning committee for our alumni group? And again, it was that, you think I can do that? And so to know that somebody else sees something in you and believes in you, and to know what that feels like, how I must pass that on to others. That's what's going to help.
Yeah, I mean,
Whoever
I think
sits in our chairs eventually.
that is, one of the questions would be, you've both been through the academy. Can you share your experience? But I do think you just highlighted something from Academy, Kelly, which I believe the three of us are blessed to have in our lives. And that is people that reflect the best in you back to you. Diana, what would you say about the Academy experience?
It was life-changing. I'm on it, to be very honest. The people that I have in my life because of the Academy has transformed where I am in my life. And even just to share something personal, I've been on a grief journey the last 2.5 years. And if it weren't for my Leadership Academy fellows, I would not be in the place that I am today, being whole, just having those friendships and you mentioned it earlier, that chosen family. That is probably the best thing that I've gotten out of the Academy experience. But just the experience itself, the self-awareness, the learning about yourself throughout that entire journey was, again, life-changing. It truly was.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say is a myth about aging services that you'd want to debunk? Either of you jump in. I see Diana's nodding. So Diana, you want to jump in?
The one thing that really drives me crazy is that older adults cannot learn or thrive in their older years. That just drives me nuts, because there's such a culture of purpose within our community, and we see every day, residents giving back to the community, giving back to their neighbors, finding purpose in every day, and finding joy and happiness and just the opportunities that they take advantage of so that they are learning and growing. That's the myth that just really, bugs me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kelly?
Yes, echo everything Diana just said. I think through the years, finding somebody you haven't seen in a long time and you share with them, from this career, I'm a nurse and I work in a nursing home, and, all these pieces, and they always look at like, this must be so sad. Aren't you sweet? And I'm like, it is rewarding, challenging, amazing. And I can't picture my life without working in this field. And during COVID, I tried to figure that out. What else could I do? But it gets you, it keeps you, and that sense of, what's the word when two opposite emotions are happening at the same time? Like to watch somebody affected by dementia dancing with their spouse in this beautiful moment, yet it's also like painful to watch, yet it's beautiful. And to live those experiences while I have grown up in this field for 25 plus years, through my life experiences of getting married and having children. And I don't know, it's just absolutely rewarding. And that would be my message to everyone, that you will find a dynamic career in aging services.
Kelly, a mutual friend of ours, the three of us, I won't mention, another Academy peep, she's a CEO of a member community, and she called me during COVID and said, you know what I don't want to do anymore? I said, what's that? She said, I don't want to be CEO of a CCRC during a pandemic. I said, what in the world would you do? And she said, dolphin trainer. And I'm like, I know that your dog hasn't been trained. You cannot go and train dolphins. You're going to have to keep doing what you're doing. I'm sorry to break that news to you. I think we were all imagining what we would do differently.
Like, I feel like because the Academy, we were so prepared. Diana and Melissa, you both spoke about like making those big goals and those sense of culture, making it real. And back to Shackleton, and at Leading Age itself, how do you eliminate ageism? Like these huge goals to kind of get there, and they're big and broad, and so then with COVID, it was like everyone's going to survive, and so it's I don't know what I would have done without the Leadership Academy network at all during the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I think, particularly for our small group, we were sending videos to each other just on the daily, lifting up, supporting, listening to each other cry and vent, and so all of that kind of, so that we could go back out in front, right? So that we could go back out and be there for our team members and our residents and our families and all of that. And so again, it's so important. I agree with you both, to have that network of people who you can be raw and vulnerable with, and who understand what you're up against. So, you may live all over the country, but you've got this profession in common, and then you're just there for each other. And I think, when I think about what I would share with somebody who wanted to get into this field, I mean, that would be one of the things I would share, was the importance of finding that group that you're going to carry with you, to help carry you, and vice versa. What's one piece of advice that you would give someone, Kelly, we'll start with you, wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
It really goes back to what you just shared, having did Kate Callender call it the kitchen cabinet?
Yes.
Where if you're going to bake something, what tools you need, and how do you make sure you are there for others when they need them, but also you can rely on them to be that knowledge, skill, ability, talent, perspective when you need it too. And if you don't, I don't know how people could do these roles without that. I really don't. So that would definitely, get out there, learn. Don't be afraid, just connect yourself to an association that will also always be aspirational. And so you are always moving towards something that propels you into the future. And who is it? Stephen Covey, who says this, say big, audacious, hairy goals, get something out there that then you can live into, constantly throughout your career. And in the Academy, we call those action learning projects. And so mine was to build learning organizations. And so it's just never stopped because it was so huge and compelling and matched my values. What about you, Diana? What advice do you give to your interns, or what advice?
Yeah. I was just speaking of learning organizations. We work with a lot of different degree programs with colleges and universities in our area. And so we have interns year round. And one of my favorite conversations to have with the interns is, you need to find something you're passionate about. You need to have passion for what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to go to work every day and not be passionate about what you do. So, whatever it is you end up doing, just make sure that you are in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, that rings so true for me. It's so easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day and not focus on that bright light, right? And the need for that. So how do each of you define success? What does success look like for Diana Delgado?
Well, success is a relative term, but success to me means that my residents are, I hate to say my residents, the residents are finding meaning and purpose in every day, and that my team is excited to come to work, that we are, moving this organization forward strategically, that the residents are aging successfully, that we have innovative programs and services. That defines success for me, coming to work every day and seeing that around me.
How about you, Kelly?
I'm picturing a moment rather than last week, my father, aunt, and son came for lunch. Aww. And it was, we have a family member that lives here, and my father had never been here to see her, hadn't seen her in decades. And he came, and it was that moment where you struck that blend between what is success, right? As a mother, as a woman, and leading, and really being responsible for 600 plus people. What does that look like when I think of my staff? Definitely echoing Diana's comments, but then broadening it out to the workforce, in that I worry about food insecurity or people making decisions about gas. And I, how do we solve those things? And the success moment, probably yesterday when residents and staff came together and everybody donated what they could, and it was a shared experience. So I guess success is found in the smallest of moments for me. And then holding on to those as fuel to keep going.
Yeah, and because we hadn't hit record yet, Kelly, you were talking about donating to Ukraine relief.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So we did a big fundraiser. We have 6 employees from the Ukraine, and all definitely impacted, and in a variety of ways, as we all are. Almost don't know what to say at all. And they spoke, and everyone were yellow and blue, and we had a goal of $10,000 and came in at $16,000. So, and still coming. So I guess that's one of those moments, because it is polarizing. Like, I love it, I hate it, I want more, I want less, yes, no, I like this color, I hate this color. And so in this moment, this shared identity of a community was success. There was one lady that didn't like it.
Well, you can't, as my leadership told me in my annual performance evaluation, you can't make everyone happy, so stop trying. So speaking of oh, and I just have to say, so Kathy Anderson used to call it the spice rack. So Kathy Anderson, a retired CEO of Goodwin House, is in my kitchen cabinet. And I remember she once made like remarks, and she said, "I'm in this thing from Melissa. I don't know what she's talking about. It's like a spice rack." You would be the cayenne pepper there, Kathy. So speaking of critical piece of feedback, it is kind of amusing that I had time with my chair and vice chair during my annual performance evaluation to really kind of cathartic about a situation. And it really was like, it really obviously had been weighing on me. And I talked and we looked at possible solutions. And then I opened my evaluation and I see the piece of feedback is you can't make everyone happy all the time. It was like they planned it that way. And that wasn't a difficult piece of feedback to hear, but could you just but it was critical. It was important for me to reframe how Kelly, you could have looked at it as that one unhappy resident like ruined the whole day for you, right? And instead you're like, there was one person who wasn't happy. I mean, so have either of you received kind of a critical piece of feedback in your career, and how did you hear that? How did you respond to that? What did you do with that? Because it's sometimes hard to give feedback, I find, in my role. Again, I think part of that is a little bit of imposter syndrome, maybe. And I think, Kelly, to your point, tender with people, tough on standards is a beautiful way to really balance that feedback loop. But either one of you.
I was about halfway through my career, just had accepted a job in operations. So this is my first experience working in operations. So I was managing a team for the first time, just kind of trying to get my feet wet. And my supervisor pulled me into his office to ask me how things were going. And I said, well, things are going great. Policies, procedures, getting stuff ironed out. Like I had my to-do list, I was getting stuff checked off. And the feedback I got from him in that moment was, your team is trying to get to know you, but they feel like you're a little unapproachable. And I said, unapproachable? Like, how could they possibly think I'm unapproachable? Well, it was because when I was going from point A to point B, I was in my, silo, like I got to get this stuff done. And so they would see me, walking up and down the hallway with this determination on my face, and they didn't think they could stop and talk to me. Yeah. So I really had to take that in and process that and say, okay, Diana, what are you going to do moving forward so that your team can stop you in the hallway? So I just started stopping myself. Anytime I saw somebody, I would stop and engage, have a conversation, because that way I was building trust with them, getting to know them, and hopefully making them aware that they can stop me anytime. And for me to just take that in and it's, trust me, it's stuck with me. I still do this in the hallway. I still stop every time I see somebody and have a conversation, because I never want them to think I'm unapproachable.
Oh, what a wonderful way to turn something that you really could have been taken, like you could have been wounded by that, right? and gone into a spiral, but to be able to, and the fact that it still resonates with you. I remember mine was pacing. So it was when I was still at National, and talk about being told every year on your evaluation that you're going too fast. And at the time, I will be transparent. I said to my supervisor at the time, Mary Riley, God bless her, you know her, icon. I said, well, maybe everybody else moves too slow. and then I went into the academy and we read Heifetz, Leadership Without Easy Answers. We talked about the dance floor versus the balcony and pacing. And I remember going back to her and with my tail between my legs a little bit and saying, that wasn't fair. And she followed up with saying, just because I'm telling you to slow down didn't mean I wasn't telling everybody else to speed up. And that was a real moment. But she waited for me to So Kelly, what about you? What was that one piece of feedback?
So it's kind of crushing really to even disclose this, but vulnerability, right? I will go there. I, again, hadn't really left in my early years of nursing home. I hadn't really left the nursing home, right? And so my jobs were all a series of getting promoted, in that nursing home. And I had applied from staff development nurse to become the assistant director of nursing, and I didn't get it. And I was ticked. And because in my world, there was the ceiling, there was nothing after that. And I didn't know what all this existed either. And so apparently my face was showing it a lot. And a dear mentor of mine, Pat Gannon, said to me, Kelly, everything you do is a reflection of who you are. What do you want people to think about you? And it stuck with me forever. I instead wrote a note of congratulations to the woman who did get the assistant director of nursing and then resigned like 2 months later. But
and then did you get it?
No, I resigned.
Oh.
Somewhere else. No, I wrote her, I congratulated her, and I went, that's who I am. I'm not some spiteful, bitter, I'm just cranky. And so it was a real moment of realizing that I was absolutely, my emotions, I was wearing them and everybody was seeing how cranky I was and apparently talking about it. So how do I, so that was a loving critic moment. That was a moment that Pat saw something in me that through, just like you both shared, through that they knew we'd take it in and do something with that feedback,
Yeah. Well, this has been, I could talk to you both and we have for days. We've done that. But as we wrap up our time together, what is one last thought that you have that you want to share about anything, about the field, about, your experience in the profession, about, where we need to go from here? Just kind of any last thought you have.
It's a good question, Melissa. Well, I have my own soapbox for all of that.
Get on it.
Working in affordable housing as long as I have, I'm just really passionate about I used the phrase earlier, the intersection of healthcare and housing, and just how important it is that we are focusing on that side of the spectrum. I think if we invested more earlier on, that we would transform our healthcare system. So that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But I just, I'm really passionate about working on those policies, at different levels, nationally, locally, whatever that might look like, to advance the work in our field around that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing that I think everybody learned from the past couple of years is housing is healthcare. I mean, just the very basic, the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, the need for housing. And then when you look at the model that Eaton really has become nationally through yours and David's and others' leadership around how we can enhance that with these services to allow people to live, incredible lives. I think that you're right, because again, just like people have a mental model when they think of nursing home, they have a mental model when they think of affordable housing. And
Correct.
you have disrupted that. And anybody who's had the pleasure of going to your community has seen that, or has attended your virtual fundraiser and has the scarves to prove it, has also seen that. So I think we all have a lot of work to do in that area. What about you, Kelly?
I think coming, and I so enjoyed Diana's perspective and feel a sense of security that you're working on that. Do you know? And so it will advance because it's so essential, but we all need to take the piece that we're going to work on and like puzzle pieces, bring them together. So for me, it's the intersection of ageism and workforce. And so how do we, what do we do? Because it's a crisis is coming, and it's embedded deep into the ageism of resources, just technical things I watch in the elementary school, happening so early on in a person's life to be ageist. And, somebody had sent me a video, they thought it was funny, but we were doing a lot of work on technology, and someone had sent me a Saturday Night Live video it was called the Golden Alexa. It broke my heart. I was like, how are we, what are we doing that we're okay with that? Like, that is just, so it poked fun at people with hearing loss and memory issues, and it's on national TV, so, how does a young adult go into nursing? Nurse is going to be my lens always, go into nursing school saying, I can't wait to work in skilled nursing, when really, so.
Yeah. And I think, Kelly, one of the things that always fascinates me is people like Diana started out with, being close to grandparents. How many of us had close relationships with grandparents, but at some point ageism crept in, and I don't want to work with older adults anymore, or just this kind of the fear, the disdain, all of those things. And you think about how those people also held their grandparents dear, and where did that happen? Like, what's the point where that perspective shifts? And I wish we could identify it so we could eradicate that moment. And I know it's not just one thing, because that would make it easy to eradicate. But always spending time with you is a gift, but thank you for giving the gift of all that you are to this field to our listeners. Thank you to you both for being here with me to record this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. This was fun.
Well, I know I'm biased, Paula, because as I said at the beginning, they are my chosen family. Kelly and Diana are amongst that small group of people. But they both bring such eloquence to the answers. Just learning organization, an organization of yes, tender with people, tough on standards, just the way that they are able to really headline their leadership styles, their leadership traits, their presence. What struck you from this conversation?
Well, it was those little snippets. I liked the career destination, make aging industry the career destination. I love that. Or, the mission of the not-for-profit is inspirational, and it is. For Diana, just that culture of curiosity, the culture of yes that she talked about, I really like that, me, because I do like to, I think one thing's to be a little fun. So, let's be curious about a lot of different things. Yes, that's good. And then just being passionate about the career. I know the one thing that Kelly mentioned, choose your career before someone chooses it for you. Oh my God, I wish I knew that 40 years ago,
Her tenacity, to see the organization that and I remember going through that alongside of her, in our friendship, that to see the organization that she wanted to be a part of and know it. And the fact that she said that, Duncaster's values aligned with her values, and that's why she wanted to be there. And I think that is incredible. And then I look at, the other side of the continuum, the work that Diana and the team at Eaton does around just really thinking through partnerships. How can we make our residents' experiences the best that they can be, knowing that we can't do it all ourselves?
Right. Well, and then with affordable housing, it's a little bit different, and they need as much as everyone else gets as well. So, she's finding that for them in the community. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for anybody who has not gone through the Leadership Academy, either ours or national, I thought that was a pretty good indication indication of why it's a
Great promo for it, yes.
I know. I know. Yeah. So I hope that we'll see more people, and especially as we get ready to welcome our new class of fellows.
Yeah, good.
Well, that was one for the ages for me. But they all have been. I think I've said that every time, that this podcast was the best podcast. But this was so much fun to learn from other people in our field.
Yeah, and I mean, you're getting to just be with friends. I mean, several of them I know of that, you find them very good. And it's like you're being with friends, so it's so easy to talk with them, and so easy for them to talk with you too. So it's
Yeah,
it's
been
authentic.
Well, thank you, Paula.
Thank you.